So Dave is always talking about how the laundromat industry is the best small business in America by far. And I know you looked at a lot of different businesses to get into, and you kept referring to your criteria. You looked at the gym, you looked at the car wash, but you ended up deciding on the laundromat industry. Why did you decide that the laundromat industry is the best small business to get involved in? Because we get a lot of people that are looking into buying their first laundromat. Why a laundromat?
Well, I'd rather say why I did it, because I mean that's easy for me, right? Um, One is it's a very flat structure. I didn't have to have hierarchical structure in terms of the number of people I worked with and what how I had to manage them and what I had to deal with them. I know a lot of people in our industry get upset they have employees, but you'd be more upset if you had a whole hierarchical of managers and other people that you had to deal with going down. And in essence, we're really a very flat organization. It's you and there's everybody else for the most part. You know what I mean? The second thing is that it was a business that I'd be able to finance myself. By that, I mean, I'd be able to come up with my down payments and I'd be able to get bank loans, but I did not have to deal with what would be, let's call, equity participants. I didn't have to deal with VCs. I didn't have to deal with bankers. I didn't have to deal with board of directors, right? I'd be able to, in essence, finance this myself, okay? Third, it's a relatively simple business in terms of the economics. You are quickly able to determine if you're making money or not making money and what you have to do to make money. And fourth, it's a business with what amounts to be a very easy exit strategy. Almost like selling a home, you have a whole broker institution that once you decide you sell, find your broker and you'll be able to find somebody to sell it to. While if on other small businesses, it's harder because a lot of those businesses have ownership involvement because the customer is dependent upon the owner. The owner found the customer. The owner has all the relationships to bring the customer in, all that kind of thing. So now the owner has to sign a deal for 2 years that I'll still talk to my customers and bring them all to you and all that kind of stuff. Why the laundromat stands on its own. None of these people care whether I'm really the owner or not the owner, all right? You're able to sell your business fairly quickly. I'm not telling you you're going to get the money you want, but the whole process is there with the brokers who sell laundromats. Is a ready market and there's a ready buyer. And I say it's very akin to selling your house. And so those are the primary reasons why I thought this was good for me.
I appreciate Carla asking that question because that is something I'm very passionate about, as I do believe, not necessarily for everybody, but I believe for me and obviously for you, and I believe for a lot of people, that the laundromat industry and the laundromat business is very misunderstood. It's very misrepresented in a lot of ways, even within the industry. And a part of my passion is to get the word out there in the world of how great the laundromat industry is and how much you can impact a local community by running what I call a high-end modernized laundromat like yours. So anyway, listen, man, thanks so much, my friend, for taking the time to share your story with us and all of these nuggets of wisdom and encouragement, and all the lessons that you've brought to us through this. I have one last question before we let you go. And I think I'm going to ask most of our guests this question, and I'm really intrigued to hear your answer to this. And the question is, what's the best piece of advice that you've ever been given by someone else?
The best piece of advice that changed my life, my personal life, was from Jim Fifield again. he came in to have a personal meeting with me at Capitol, and we sat down, I remember, and he says to me that when people come into your office, you're giving them the answer. And they leave, but you haven't actually satisfied their needs. When the people come into the office, they want to feel like they're part of the solution, that you're not telling them what the solution is. If you start every conversation with, how can I help you? You immediately are taking a big step forward towards making them part of the solution, obtaining buy-in, and then you're still going to get exactly where you want it to be, but now they're part of it, and they're not feeling they're being told what the answer is.
That is great advice for managing anyone.
Yes, it is. That's even great advice for parenting, which I'm sure you know. And I think I'm going to start using that on my children today. Well, listen, my friend, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for giving us a couple hours of your valuable time and sharing with our audience, all your knowledge and expertise.